Hey Jvox, I hope you can hear me now. I literally just did this, but the audio didn't work. So we're gonna go ahead. I'm gonna do this again. Even if nobody's on live right now, I'm sure there will be people who watch it later. So this is for you. So let's go ahead and hop right in. We've been in this series of Ask Away. We've been talking about how in June we talked about how we know that Jesus really died on the cross. And then this month, July, we've been talking about how do we know Jesus really rose from the dead. The past 2 weeks, we've talked about how we know for sure that the tomb was empty. This week, we're talking about how we know that Jesus really did appear to people after he died. And then next week, we're going to talk about how certain the disciples were that Jesus really rose from the dead, that they were willing to die for what they believed, and how these three facts together can help us be confident, can support our faith and be confident that Jesus really did rise from the dead. So let's go ahead and hop right in, JVox. So this week, again, talking about how Jesus really did appear to people after his crucifixion. So in order to see what the Bible says, let's hop into Acts chapter 1, verse 3. It says, during the 40 days after he suffered and died, he appeared to the apostles from time to time, and he proved to them in many ways that he was actually alive, and he talked to them about the kingdom of God. So Acts right here is saying during those 40 days, Jesus really did appear to different people during this time. But then Paul in 1 Corinthians 15, verses 5 through 8, goes into a little bit more detail. That during that time, those 40 days, Jesus was seen by Peter and then by the 12. After that, he was seen by more than 500 of his followers at one time, most of whom are still alive, though some have died. Then he was seen by James and later by all the apostles. Last of all, as though I, Paul, had been born time, I also saw him. So Paul's sharing how that Jesus appeared not just to one person, not just to small groups, but he appeared actually to large groups, and they got to see the risen Jesus. But we know that events are reliable, they're trustworthy, when there are several separate sources, different pieces, all pointing to the same puzzle, several sources of information telling that an event happened. So we have Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and Paul all telling that Jesus appeared after his death. And they each write this in their own books. You know, each of them have their own, but even Luke writes Luke and Acts. Paul writes a bunch of books. But we see that all of these separate sources are telling the same exact thing. And looking back at 1 Corinthians 15, not only does Jesus appear to those individuals or to small groups, but Jesus appears to large groups as well. You know, it says that Jesus was seen by 500 alive, and they can know that they were eyewitnesses. So go ask them. Go ask. So Paul wouldn't have been able to write this unless they really could go and ask those people. So it's pretty amazing how Paul was able to point them to other people to confirm what he was saying. So with several sources all saying the same thing, and Paul being able to say, to go check what he's saying, to be able to go ask other people, we can be confident that Jesus really did appear to these people after he died on the cross. So we've talked about the empty tomb. We talked about how right today, we talked about how Jesus appeared to different people, and then after his death. And then next week, we'll talk about how we know that the disciples were so certain of what they believed about the risen Jesus that they were willing to die for what they believed. So all of those together pointing to how we know that we could trust that the resurrection truly happened. So that was the big question I wanted to share with you guys. But I also wanted to tackle one small question, which I really like. So we're going to hop right in. So the question is, why are there so many different translations or versions of the Bible? There's the original language of the Bible in the Hebrew and in the Greek, which is kind of like Chewbacca, which you can't understand unless you have a translator. Or there's the King James version, which for my Star Wars fans, that's kind of like Qui-Gon Jinn, where it's it's old, but it's still really effective and it works for some people. Then there's the New International Version, the NIV, which is, I think it's kind of like Han Solo. It's simple to understand, but it's actually really effective as well. And then there's the English Standard Version, which is the ESV, which I like a lot, but it's kind of like Yoda. So sometimes it's like worded backwards, but it's mostly right on point. So with all of these different versions, you may ask, can I even know what the original documents had said? What the original writings of those Bible authors had said, and that God used them to write that down? And the answer is yes. But I think there's a few important things that we have to notice. First, we have to realize that language changes over time. Words take on a different meaning as time passes. Kind of like how a couple of weeks ago we talked about unicorns, and the word used to be used to talk about something like a one-horned real animal, kind of like they use the word to talk about a single-horned rhinoceros, but now the word is used to talk about a horse-like mythical creature, like from My Little Pony, and it poops rainbows. But the word has changed so much over time. And what happens is that new versions of the Bible, new translations, have been released because they want to update the wording with how we use the words today, and they want to clarify what the original meant. The second thing we have to realize is that the Bible was originally written in 3 languages. It was written in Hebrew, in Greek, and a little bit of Aramaic. So sometimes because of these language barriers, there's differences in language that we really just don't catch in English. In the Greek, there's 4 words that are used for what we call love. We say love, like I love Sour Patch, I love my dog, I love my mom, I love, we use it for everything. But what happens here is that the word love in the Greek, there is 4 different words. There was eros, which had to do with romantic love. There was storage, I think. I don't remember exactly how to pronounce it. I Googled how to pronounce it and I forgot. But that has to do with like family love. And then there's phila, which has to do with like brotherly love. And then agape, which has to do with love from God. So, 4 words, which we just mash into one, and we don't quite understand unless it's clearly told to us. So with all of these differences, there's been multiple ways of translating the Bible. There's one way that's called word for word, which is where you take that word in the ancient language and you try to find that identical word in English. But what happens is that it gives you the correct word, but sometimes it's a little difficult to read. It's not really smooth. And then there's the thought for thought method, which has to do with, they don't translate the exactly identical word for word, but it tries to convey the same thought in order for it to be read smoothly and help you really understand. But sometimes using words that aren't like exactly perfect, you end up missing a little bit of the detail and you don't catch the exact thought. And then another method is paraphrase, where they kind of give you a summary of what's being said, and it doesn't really give you all of the details. So to visually show you, I got another picture. So it's a little small, so I'm gonna get a little close, and I'm gonna point it out, and I'm gonna tell you, so you don't have to read it all. But if you can see here, we have the word for word method, the thought for thought method, and the paraphrase method. So more on the word for word side, we have like the ESV, which is kind of like Yoda. We have the King James version, which is kind of like Qui-Gon Jinn. So these are more word for word, trying to give you the exact same word, so maybe a little more difficult to read. And then there's thought for thought, and over here we see like the New International Version, which I said like Han Solo, but so it's trying to give you kind of the same exact thought, even if they don't use the same words. And then on this side, there's paraphrase, which we have like the Message version, which they tried to give you. They try to give you like a summary of what's being said, so you can kind of catch the big picture. So And it's, there's been a lot of these people, a lot of Bible translators that have worked really hard to give you all these different versions. So what happens is I often read my Bible in multiple versions. I'll look at the ESV, trying to see what exactly the same words are. I'll use the NIV or the NLT kind of to get more of a thought for thought. And then sometimes I'll hop into a different version as well, and I'll be able to kind of mash all these together and understand the detail, understand what's trying to be said, and maybe even get a summary. So that's we can really understand what the original said. It's just, since we don't speak Hebrew or Greek from back then, it can be we need like a translator. So all of these different versions are trying their best to help you out. So I wanted to share that with you today, JVox. We got some great stuff for the rest of this week and next week. We got Austin and Andrew tomorrow on SOAP. We got JVox this Sunday coming up, so make sure to tune in. And the next week I got something fun planned with you guys. So make sure to be tuned in. I'll get the details out to you, but it's going to be a good time. So JVox, thanks for hopping on. For those of you who hopped on now live, for those of you who saw it later, who saw it 50 years from now, whatever, I'm so glad you got to hop on and hear about how we can be confident about what we believe. So I'll see you, JVox, and I hope you have a great day.